Good morning, and we are live on a Monday, Memorial Day, and I'm very honored to have James Clingerman on the show this morning. But before we get going, and we're waiting for folks to jump on because we're going a little bit early this morning, but that's okay. I know everybody's hopefully got hot dogs and barbecues to attend today. Let's go ahead and share this. Then we'll talk about our sponsors. I know that James has been coaching and competing all weekend long, and we're lucky to have him on the show this morning. Let's see. If you're just jumping on, go ahead and hit that share button. Looks like we got 6 folks jumping on already on an early Memorial Day morning. Please make sure that you share this. You're definitely going to want to hear this story. It is pretty amazing. James has a lot to share with us today. I'm going to there. Okay. Thank you to everyone jumping on so far, and thank you to everyone that's going to watch in the replays or maybe on Coffee with a Rich YouTube channel or watch or listen to the podcast on the American Warrior Show. If you're just jumping on, you're like, who the heck is this guy? My name is Rich Brown. I'm the co-host, co-founder of the American Warrior Society and the American Warrior Show, America's #1 self-defense podcast. I'm a retired Marine Corps officer, former police officer, corrections officer, special operations officer, and I'm very excited once again to be joined by James Clingerman. Let me read you James's impressive bio here. James got his start in martial arts at the age of 13 when he began studying karate. Not being satisfied with the effectiveness of the art, he ventured out and began studying many forms, including Japanese JuJutsu, Judo, Kickboxing, and Jeet-Kune-Do. After experiencing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the first time in 1997, James fell in love with the art and came to realize that due to its effectiveness, it was the one most suitable for him. Since then, James has become a diligent student of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Along with holding a 3rd-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a brown belt in Judo, and has practiced boxing and Muay Thai, James has well over 200 combined competitive matches in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, submission grappling, and mixed martial arts. He's constantly adding to his already impressive list of tournament wins. Mr. Clingerman is also considered one of the Midwest top authorities on mixed martial arts. He is certified to perform all duties under the International Sport Combat Federation and is one of the most in-demand MMA referees in the Midwest. James has refereed events such as the International Fight League, Legends of Fighting Championship, United Fight League, Cage Rage, Elite Cage Fighting, Coliseum Combat, and many, many others. James is the author of many instructional DVDs, including the BJJ Foundation, the world's most complete BJJ fundamentals curriculum, the Cyclone Submission Series, Mastering the Von Flue Choke, Peruvian Dozen 2.0, and countless others. James also owns 2 BJJ schools in Indiana Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy, which has been in operation for 21 years, and Endurance BJJ, which has been open and operating for 7 years. James, good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Rich.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm better than I deserve, sir.
That's awesome. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You know, it is Memorial Day, and I've lost 7 friends in combat that were very close and meant a lot to me, and I'll be drinking and thinking about them today, and it's a good day. Let's see who's on this morning, James. We've got James Knowlton out there. Stay safe in Vegas on the streets, brother. Appreciate that. Mr. Rob Pincus, good morning, sir. Pleasure to have you. Walt is on. Guile is on. Says, good morning, Rich. Good morning, James. Good morning, guys. Greg is on. Good morning, Guile. Please like and hit that share button. We got a lot of stuff for James. James, that's a really impressive bio, man. What did I miss in saying all that?
Oh man, I don't know. A lot of that stuff seems so old. All the MMA reffing and stuff. Just been focused on jiu-jitsu for so long now. I'm certified Abu Dhabi referee. I've reffed a couple of the amateur things, so I've never gotten to ref the big show yet. IBJJF certified. Again, I don't even really mess with it. I'm too busy coaching if I'm at an event or competing. So, yeah, man, I think you touched on a lot of it. I've just been training martial arts since I was 13. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for, we're at like 24 years Have my black belt for 14, going on 14 this year. So yeah, that's really about all I do. Just jujitsu.
Yeah, well, running a school, I'm sure, is a really busy job.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. You guys have to excuse my voice, by the way. We, excuse me, we had the first IBJJF International in Indianapolis this weekend. So it was a 2-day event. It was gi and no gi. So I was coaching all weekend and competing. So, little pressure, physical pressure on my throat from others, and then me screaming all weekend. So
Yeah. So, you talked about, I think you got started in martial arts at 13. What got you started in the first place?
oh man, so like people make fun of me. I always talk about like when I was a kid, like the people you look up to. You've got Superman, you've got GI Joe, and you've got Bruce Lee, and I always wanted to be the good guy. And obviously, I can't have superpowers. As a kid, you can't really have real guns and stuff. You can't go to war. But what you could do is learn martial arts. So I probably, like I tell a story all the time, like I probably would have been diagnosed with like social anxiety disorder when I was a kid, but, there wasn't a thing. I was just shy, unmotivated, I guess. And, man, finally, like after years and years and years of me just checking out every martial arts book in the library and practicing on myself and beating up my little sister, my dad finally, dragged me to a karate studio and, kind of threw me into it. And, that at least kind of got me past that that anxiety of going into a group. And I was like, okay, I definitely want to do martial arts. I can do this. I'm here, I'm doing it. So once I decided that I wanted to move on from karate, it was a little easier for me to step into a studio. And so I started doing the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, and then later on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
You know what I like about that story is you didn't learn some fancy technique when you first got on the mats in the karate studio, but you learned how to interact with others, be part of an organization, to overcome the social anxiety. I say the same kind of thing. Not that I had social anxiety, just we lived in Memphis, and as it was kind of really a rough environment for me as a kid, and I was not welcome there, and for the color of my skin. But going to karate and having a sense of community, a sense of family, a place that I could learn and train and give myself some self-discipline were all things that could never be taken away. Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, even then, like part of their like curriculum in order to rank up was you had to teach classes, which was horrible. I was like, no, but yeah, it got me out there. So, honestly, like had I never done karate, I probably wouldn't be in the situation I'm in teaching jujitsu as a profession,
Yeah. And, without it, God knows that social anxiety or, whatever we used to call it when you and I were growing up may have gotten a hold of you, and who knows where you'd be today.
Yeah. Oh, and I still have it, last 2 days I was competing, and obviously that's a high anxiety situation. I'm anxious for my students out there competing. I'm anxious myself. And, two of the guys in my bracket were world champions. And it's like, well, I can either be anxious about it and get all, shaky and nervous, or I can just go out and smile and have fun and play some jujitsu. And, fortunately I was able to kind of turn that around, and just, man, I had so much fun this weekend. I had 7 matches over the weekend, and it's been at least 15, 16 years since I've done that. But I was able to really overcome it literally just by smiling and just changing my mindset, just going, hey, I'm going to have fun, and what happens. And so good. And it was a good time.
Well, that's one of the things I told you yesterday in the pre-show. That's one of the things that I've always, in watching you from afar for the last year or so, I've really liked about you personally, is that you always seem to be having fun, whatever you're doing, whatever you're discussing, whatever you're teaching. And I really respect that in another man and in another instructor. So well done.
Thank you. It's better than the alternative.
Yeah. Greg is on. He says, good morning from Texas, coin number 2060. And if you want to know what a coin number is, you're going to have to check out AmericanWarriorSociety.com and find out if becoming a member of our self-defense community is the right thing for you. My lovely bride, Miss Lisa, is on. Jimmy is on. Alan Kelly says, good morning. Coin number 1571 from occupied Virginia. Remember those that gave all on this Memorial Day. Spot on. And Will Parker right there in Montana, coin number 800. Good morning. Please like and hit that share button. We're just getting going with Mr. Clingerman.
Good morning, guys.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our sponsors. I don't know how I overlooked that. Let's talk about Century Martial Arts, makers of the Bob XL. Want to take your striking routine to the next level? Get yourself a Bob XL. You can also take Bob to the range and shoot Bob as much as you want. Bob doesn't mind. You want to work the chokes, the Von Flue choke, which James is known for. You can do that on Bob. He doesn't mind at all. Lapel chokes, wear it out. We also have apphemp.com, which is Appalachian Standard, makers of the finest CBD products money can possibly buy. Core Fire Trainer right now, folks, as you know, ammunition prices are still insane. So please get yourself a Core Fire Trainer and continue to dry fire until ammunition prices come back down to earth. Mountain Man Medical Trauma Kits, man. As you're going to find out later in today's show, a trauma kit in your vehicle is incredibly important because you never know what you're going to encounter. So please pick up a trauma kit from Mountain Man Medical. You can also get the co-branded one that we're doing with them, and you can get a American Warrior Society trauma kit for your vehicle, your home, and everywhere else that you take your loved ones. Precision Holsters, makers of the finest holsters money can buy, not just in the tactical community, but their competition line is phenomenal. So please check them out as well. Tony Izan says, good morning from Brunswick, Georgia. Okay, James, sorry about having a sponsor reads, man.
That's okay. I'm going to pick up one of those trauma kits, though.
We got to keep the lights on, you know what I'm saying? So I want to talk about, like I alluded to, James, one of the things that your bio does not cover, and also I alluded to with the trauma kit, man, was a horrific event that happened in your life at a red light. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I've told the story a million times. But so I was 20 years old. Man, I'd actually just won some major tournaments. I just won Gracie Nationals. I just won American Judo Cup, like competing pretty much full time then, as far as what was available goes. Saving up to go to World Championships down in Brazil. My wife and I were living in a little apartment on the north side of Indianapolis. Sure we weren't married then, but man, it was like Sunday night, 8:30. We were leaving my apartment, driving to my mother's house. My mom was in Vegas, and my sister lived with her. So we were just going down there to watch my little sister for the night or weekend or whatever it was. And Sunday evening, for whatever reason, my wife did not have to work. So we drove separately. I had to work the next day, had my normal job, not my jiu-jitsu job. So we leave, and I had ordered a pizza. So I was taking the back roads. First stoplight we come to, I'm sitting there. So if you picture this, there's like two left-hand turn lanes, right? So I'm in the right side, turning left. And this car pulls up next to me. So I've been sitting there for a minute. Car pulls up, and it looked like somebody waved, normal. Like half a mile from the apartment, figured it was a neighbor or something. And I look over, man, and there's just this belligerent idiot just in the passenger seat. He's just flipping me off, cussing me out, just going nuts. And I'm like, okay, like obviously guy's drunk, And so I didn't really pay any attention to him, didn't say anything, didn't, motion to him at all, just ignored him. And he just kept on. And I remember glancing over at one point, and like his girlfriend is driving the vehicle, and she kind of leans up and she gives me like the "don't mess with him," kind of motion. And I was like, yeah, we're good. I'm not. But in reality, I'm like, man, if this guy gets out, like I'm going to end him right here in the middle of the road.
But you don't remember cutting him off or anything. You never saw it.
No, I was already at this light for a bit, and before they even pulled up. And like literally I pulled out of my apartment complex and then basically hit this light, right? So nowhere in traffic did we ever meet. And
your window is up, James? And
yeah, it's February 20th in Indianapolis. It's freezing, snowing. I've got a coat on, like it's cold. My windows are up. Never even made eye contact with the guy until he had, motioned toward me. Which like I said, I thought it was just somebody waving, and ended up being this guy flipped me off. And so finally, like we're sitting here, and his girlfriend, she pulls the car up, kind of almost out into the intersection a little bit, so we're not making eye contact anymore. And I was like, all right, cool. Like hopefully this light will turn green soon. This was, by the way, the longest red light in the history of red lights. It was just insanely long. And then all of a sudden I see the backup lights come on, and she backs the car up, and they don't get quite right next to me, but kind of beside me. And the guy goes, like, he pulls this gun up, and at the time I had no, like, I'd never shot a gun before that I can remember. And he just goes, "Are you afraid of this?" And I was like, "Yep." And so, like, I was just going to go straight and run through the light. Well, I didn't want to hit any of the cross traffic. There's a lot of lanes there. And so I just kind of glanced before I even took my foot off the brake, and I never got my foot off the brake. Next thing I know, it felt like my head exploded, like that movie Scanners, where people's heads are. I mean, that's what it felt like. It felt like a grenade went off inside my head, and man, it hit me in my left cheek, so it blew through my window. It knocked me over into my passenger seat, which sounds normal, except I had my seatbelt on. Oof. So it actually, like, the seatbelt retractor, the thing that stops when you're trying to, like, look around the corner and you keep getting caught. It's built to stop you when you're in a car accident. It actually broke that. The impact was so hard. So it knocked me over into my passenger seat, and man, instantly I'm blind, I'm deaf, I've got this loud ringing, I can't hear anything, I can't see anything at all. And I laid there for, I don't know, probably half a second, and I just thought, like, man, I could literally, like, this guy could be just opening fire. I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on. I could have bullets whizzing by me. I could get hit with another one any second. He could be walking up on me to finish me off. So I just floored it. I just hit the gas, and I kept my head down. I'm, like, steering, and I'm honking the horn, because I'm driving blind and deaf at this point, and I'm blinking, and I know I went through the light, and I started to see little glimmers of, like, tail lights and stuff, and I just kept driving, and I probably only drove about a block, maybe, I don't know, even if that. But we end up, like, on this overpass to get onto a major interstate, and I clipped the backside of another car. And when I clipped the car, I was like, okay, I've got somebody's attention now, And so after I did that, I stopped, threw it in drive, and I jumped out, and I'm holding my face. And I was like, I had a little bit of vision back at this point. And I was like, hey, some guy shot me in the face or something like that, I was like, call the police. And this guy was already on his phone. So, like, this is 2000. Like, most people didn't have cell phones back then. I know I didn't. Mm-hmm. But he had a cell phone. He was standing out of his car. He was on his phone, and he's like, I just go, hey, call the cops or whatever. And I go over and I lean on his car. And I just remember, like, mass amount of blood just shooting out of my head. Like, looked like somebody just had a big gallon, and they were just going blah, blah. And, like, my thought was like, oh my God, I just hit this poor guy. Now I'm bleeding on his car. So I back off, and I go and I kneel down in the middle of the road. And, like, as soon as I kneel down, I look up, and there's a sheriff's deputy walking toward me. And he was actually getting onto that street off the interstate. And he's like, I was like, he goes, he just kind of froze. And I go, some fucker at that light just shot me in the face. And he's like, give me some phone numbers, give me an ID. So I ripped my wallet out. I threw my wallet at him, and trying to, like, I'm trying to remember phone numbers. My dad had just moved. He had a new number, and, like, I'm like, I don't know. But I gave him some phone number. I gave him, I think, my dad and my mom's house, which is where my wife was going. And yeah, man. And then, like, I remember he called it in, another sheriff's deputy comes, and she's like, lay down. And he's like, no, stay. And they had this little argument. And, finally I was like, look, I'm alive. I'm okay right now. I'm going to stay right where I'm. Paramedics got there, and they're like, lay down. So I laid down. They tried to cut my coat off. I'm like, no, it's my favorite coat. Took my coat off, and then, it was like brand new pair of jeans, my favorite shirt, and they're like cutting all my clothes off. And it's, again, February 20th. It's winter. I'm laying on the cold concrete on the overpass, and you always see those signs like bridge freezes first. So I'm laying there, like, literally in my tidy whities, just freezing. I'm like, oh my God, this is getting worse. But yeah, they got me in the ambulance, and started heading that way. And I just remember, like, once I got in the ambulance and got laid down, I was starting to fade, right? Like, I was starting to go to sleep. And I asked the paramedic, I was like, hey man, I'm getting tired. Like, can I close my eyes? And He goes, oh yeah. And I was like, no. Like, am I going to wake up? If I close my eyes, am I going to wake up? I was like, I can stay awake if I need to. And he goes, yeah, man, we've got you. I was like, cool. Good night. Went to sleep. And, there's several times I wake up throughout different little procedures. And, I remember waking up, my dad and my wife sitting there and covering all these hot blankets and stuff with a big hole in my face. And yeah, it was a pretty wild night.
Oh my God. I can't imagine, man. And did they catch the guy?
Yeah. So he actually, not the smartest guy at all, but so, from my understanding, so real quick, just to show kind of idiot this guy is, his girlfriend was actually pregnant with his child at the time. And so when she had pulled the car up, he pulled the gun on her first and pointed at her stomach and told her to back the car up. So that was her motivation to kind of re-engage. Right. But then, so afterwards he pointed back at her and was like, get me out of here. And so she took him back to their apartment. He called his mom or stepmom or something, kind of told her what happened. Well, she assumed like, this guy's an idiot. If they call the cops, he's going to get killed. So she talked him into coming up to her place to turn himself in up there. Well, on the way up, he made his girlfriend drop him off at a bar. And she was like, I'm out. So she actually called the police and was like, hey, he's here at this bar. He had a weird little conversation with a guy at the bar when he was giving him bullets out of the magazine. And but yeah, cops came in, they took him to jail. And yeah, so he got arrested that night. We ended up going to court, man, like 9 months later or something ridiculous. And yeah, he ended up getting 54 years, no parole. So he's still in jail.
Good. May he die there.
Yeah, no joke.
So one of the things that I heard you talk about, I think it was on Chewy's podcast, was trying to keep your brain active. And I think you were, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think you said you're doing jiu-jitsu moves in your head and calculus or whatever. Tell us about that, man.
I don't know any calculus.
Me either.
But no, yeah. So that's funny you brought that up. So yeah, like when, you get shot in the head, man, you don't know what's going on. I was very aware. And so like at first I'm like, man, I'm either dying or I have brain damage. And so like I felt reasonably good, like unreasonably good, I guess. Like I was like, I'm okay. I'm active. Like, so I was like, I think I'm gonna have brain damage. I don't know where it's at, and I started doing math problems, and then like math problems turned into like jujitsu moves. So I'm literally kneeling there, bleeding out of my head, just running through jujitsu moves. Like, okay, here's how you set up a triangle. What are my favorite set? Like just trying to like stay active, stay mentally aware. And I don't know if it helped or not, but it helped me. It gave me something to do while, I'm laying there basically bleeding to death. So yeah, that was, I actually forgot about that. Yeah. Just,
I tell you, man, I think that is so good. People need to hear that, because if you look back to the servicemen that were imprisoned in the Hanoi Hilton, and they're stuck in these little boxes for years, keeping their brain active with stuff just like you did, James. So it's not just like I've been shot in the head, but it can be useful for a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how many surgeries have you had to go through?
Obviously that night they went in. So actually I have like, I've got 2 steel plates. So I've got one down this way and then one across to reconstruct my cheekbone. And then there's like basically like a hammock or something that holds my eye in. So my eye is like, it doesn't set quite as perfect. So I know that night, that's pretty much all they did, man. I got so lucky. The way the bullet hit, it literally drove its way directly into the cheekbone and it followed the cheekbone in and stopped. Missed my carotid artery by about a centimeter. So the damage to my eye is actually just like the concussion of it all. It ruptured the backside of my eye. So it put a bunch of holes in my eye. It damaged the, like the receptors back there. It detached my retina. So, I had the major surgery the night of, I was only in the hospital like 2.5 days. You know, I was pretty stable right off the bat. And they were like, yeah, we're good to go. Kept me, made sure my vitals were okay, and like let me go home. All the nurses kept trying to bathe me, which was weird. I'm good. No, I'm good.
I have that problem all the time too, James. It's like everywhere I go.
I was like, you don't even work here. What? But yeah, and then so over the years, you know, I've gone in. I know I did a surgery to reattach my retina. They've gone in and removed some scar tissue off the backside of my eye. They've gone in and closed like the hole in the back of my eye. So I probably had 3, 4, maybe 5 on my eyeball itself. And then at one point, the swelling on my face, you know, I mean, obviously my face got pretty swollen, but the external swelling went down quicker than the internal. So we're probably talking a few months in, and it started pushing like my inside cheek, like out of my eye. And it was like a tube of toothpaste, like coming out. And, you know, they kept going, oh, it'll go down. It'll go down. They gave me some like stuff to put on it. And as time went by, it just kind of kept getting worse and worse. And so finally they made the call to go ahead and like lance it off. So I went in for that. They lanced it. They put 6 stitches on the inside of my eyelid, which is horrible because your eyeball moves all day long, even when you're sleeping. And then, yeah, sure enough, like right after they did the the removal, the swelling started going down. And so like my face got real tight, and I was always stretching it and stuff. And then my ear gives me probably the most problems of anything. It damaged some bones like somewhere in there. So I don't know, it doesn't align right. But I just kind of always have a ear infection. I've got a permanent tube in there, but I've probably had, man, we're probably 20 plus tubes. Like they don't stay in very long. This current one's been in for a pretty long time. But yeah, they always come out or work their way out or jujitsu their way out or whatever. And, but yeah, I have trouble with my ear, like just constantly all day, every day. That's
how's your vision in that eye?
I'm blind. Like if I close my eye, I get a little bit of light, like I can see like the glow of the computer screen, but yeah, I'm pretty blind in it. It's,
how does that affect you as a referee? That's one of the things that I've always wondered about you, James. How does that, not having vision in that eye, you know, how do you do that?
Yeah, no, it doesn't affect the major stuff. It's all the little micro things. Like I can park a car, no problem, right? Like if it's a matter of feet, it's easy. But if it's a matter of like millimeters, it's harder for me, right? Like putting a key in a hole, or even like pouring a glass of water, because I need that little bit of variance between, you know, the angles, just for that depth perception. So like if I'm pouring water, I have to like start on the side and then like move, make sure my depth is right. And but yeah, it's all the little micro stuff that it gives me a little more trouble. Boxing is way harder. Like, you know, it affects me in jiu-jitsu a little bit. Like sometimes something will happen on that side I don't see, but overall, like slipping punches became a lot harder. Not getting kicked in that side of the head became a lot harder. And landing punches, like that depth perception is just, man, I mean, even millimeters when you're striking makes a big difference. So I haven't really done any. Did
you have to change your
how
you do anything?
Man, so fortunately, I always had a right lead anyway. So I'm right-handed, but I just always kept that right-handed lead. But yeah, so that kind of helped a little bit. But yeah, probably I stopped kickboxing back in like 2012. So it's been about 9 or 10 years since I really took any punches. And mostly that was because of my neck. I actually had a really bad neck issue that manifested around 2009. And just getting hit and stuff, like even a little bit of impact in jiu-jitsu will affect my neck for about a week. So I can roll all day, no problems. Get hit once, and it's like, it sucks. So
yeah, is the bullet still in your head?
Yeah. So they decided just to leave it in. They didn't want to take it out. I don't think they really can. One of the other like weird problems I have now is I can't get an MRI. So if I have another injury, they can't do an MRI on me. I did have a doctor try to put me in a MRI when I was having the neck issues, and I was like, no, man, like I've always been told no. And he's like, you'll be fine. Just so I went in. I took X-rays and CTs to the radiologist, and I was like, hey, before you put me in that, look at these. he walked in, he came back out. He goes, do not ever get in an MRI machine. He goes, I don't care what anybody says. Like, don't do it. He goes, it could be fine or you're dead. He's like, there's no, it hurts, I'm getting out. He said, you're either going to be 100% or you're going to bleed out on the spot. He's like, if, that's so close to your carotid, there's nothing anybody can do to save you. So.
Well, and that's what I wondered too, is as far as taking falls in the gym or something like that, taking a throw and having your head take that hit. Is it any chance that bullet could dislodge from its current location?
No. Like, okay. We always make jokes about like me blowing my nose and shooting somebody, but but yeah, no, it's so stuck in there. And then just in the early days, we talked a lot about stuff like that, and they were just like, you know what, it's lodged in the bone deep enough that we can't get it out. Like if we tried, and eventually like your body will basically cocoon around it and just kind of weld it in there. So I did have when for a few months afterwards, I had like all these little specks of like lead or whatever the bullet's made out of. It was like coming out. I'd pick them out of my skin. Like, oh yeah, nice. And it might have been where it hit the window and kind of almost like, but
man, I tell you, well, I tell you, it leads into the next question, and that is, the importance of mindset and winning the fight or surviving the violence or whatever. What does the role of mindset play, whether in your daily life or surviving that incident, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to have different mindsets for different situations, right? Like, I'm here in the safety of my basement. Like, I don't need to be on high alert. I'm pretty good. Like, my dog's going to bark if somebody comes to the door. But, yeah, man, I've always, and I don't know, maybe it's because I listened to like Tony Robbins when I was a teenager and stuff like that. But I've always believed in just having a positive mindset and kind of, just kind of looking for the best in every scenario, right? Like, like moment of impact when I got shot, I definitely could have just laid there and been like, oh, I'm dead, and it was there. It wasn't a thought, but it was there. It was an option, right? It was like playing a video game, like hit A or B, like which one are we doing? And I was like, I'm not going to lay here. Right. Like I at least have to fight. But yeah, like, I think you have to kind of fight your way through most scenarios. Like just we're meant to try to survive. And I think a lot of people just over time, we've kind of lost some of that survival instinct. So that would be number one, is just like, I don't know, kind of tap into your like, your old survival instincts there. But then also just the positive mindset, man. Like things can always be worse. If you look at the best, like my childhood friend, his mom called me shortly after, and we were talking on the phone, and she's like, "You sound really good. It's a good way to look at it." I don't remember what we were talking about, and I was like, "Well, I can either just take it as it is, or I can sit around and cry about it all day long." Like, I just look which one's going to do me more good. Like it's not going to do me any good to sit around and cry about it. Like I just got to move forward. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the survival instinct, right? You take it and you move forward. Stuff happens, bad stuff happens to good people, good stuff happens to bad people. And, it is what it is. It's life. So just make the best of it. And
well, I think that what's interesting about your story is, you're a high level competitor when this happens to you. So although you go into the event with this mental game that you have, obviously you had the physical skills and abilities, but you obviously your mind to be that high level competitor. But you could have come out of it one of two ways. You channelize that same competitive mindset, or you go, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do what I love again. This is over for me. Look what has been robbed from me. But what I love about your story is, James, you did not take that second approach. You did not do the woe is me. I'm sure there was probably a down moment or two, but
oh yeah,
overall, I mean, one of the things too, James, if you could tell us about like having to go back into the jiu-jitsu gym and not be able to roll, not be able to compete for months, I would imagine, as you rehabbed, right?
Yeah, kind of. So I was shot February 20th. My academy opened on March 3rd. So at the time I was just an assistant instructor. But I mean, what is that? Like literally 2 weeks later, I was of
I think I lost you, James, or you lost me. One of us is frozen. Let's see here. Let's give it a moment. Okay, looks like we lost James. I just got a text from him saying that his computer, for some reason, shut down. He's going to log back on. Give us just a second here. It wouldn't be Coffee with Rich without the occasional technical difficulty. Thanks for being on this morning and sharing your Memorial Day morning with us. Greatly appreciate it. There he is.
Hey, sorry about that. My computer just randomly shut down and said it ran into a problem.
That's weird.
Yes, like my super nice computer too. Makes me now I'm worried. Oh, my life. What was me?
So James, you were telling us that your jiu-jitsu gym had just opened back up, and right there we go, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, March 3rd. So like 14 days, 13 days after I got shot, I was the only one who showed up. As far as the instructors go, there was a handful of like students. So the way this worked was I had I started jiu-jitsu with a guy named Greg Eldred, who was under the Gracie Academy, and so it was in like early '97. So late '99, I kind of switched teams. Started training with this father and son, Scott and Eric Sullivan, but we were just training in a garage. So it wasn't anything big, but there was a couple people that had come. And then, they started recruiting guys, and we didn't really want all the people in the garage. So Eric opened a studio. I was on the mat, like just laying there, kind of drooling, my face all swollen. And just kind of pointing at stuff. And just over time, like I didn't show up a lot in the first little bit, but it gave me something to do. It gave me gave me a reason to get out of the house and be a little active. And, I wasn't allowed to even do anything. Like I couldn't get choked. I wasn't allowed to strain. I had like a 5-pound weight limit on what I was allowed to lift and stuff like that. But yeah, it was not be able to get out and do stuff and help people. And then, over the months, like probably, man, I want to say like 3 or 4 months in, I was able to start training a little bit again. Like they lifted the weight restriction, and we just had this like do not choke James rule. Like if you got even near my neck, I just tapped, right? So focused a lot on leg locks and arm locks and just positioning. A lot of defense. Like I just did not allow anybody to choke me at all for months. And then right at like probably that 6-month mark, I think. So I think August, I went in and the eye doctor had released me, said, yeah, you can get choked again. Like his like literal terminology. He's like, yeah, you can get choked again. You're good. So yeah, that was like a Thursday. I think Friday we jumped in the car, drove down to Tennessee. I competed on Saturday, like just ready to get out there and go. Like that was probably one of the longest stints I'd had of not competing in a while. So
what was it like walking back onto that mat after going through what you went through?
Oh, it was weird. My body was much smaller. So at the time I was probably walking around about 165, maybe 170 ish. And, I got down to like 150. So I was really, really small. My body just didn't react the way it wanted to. Like, emotionally it was nice. Like it was very cool. It was like, I was very happy, I was like, man, I'm here, I'm get to do this. And, I don't think I put as much thought into it then as like I do now, but I do remember walking in and just kind of getting the chills and going, I'm back, cool. I had a lot of good matches that day, and Yeah, it was cool. I was really small. That's the main thing I remember. I was just like, oh my God, and I'm so small and weak.
So did you work out any at all while you were rehabbing, like as far as weightlifting or anything?
No, weights are heavy. No, there was a few points throughout. Like I'd actually started working out with a guy. He owned a gym, and he started training jiu-jitsu with us. So I started doing personal training with him. He was like a power lifter and stuff. And did several programs with him. Actually, he did help me put on a lot of weight. I got up to about 183 pounds at one point. So I was actually cutting back down to like 172 ish to compete and stuff, and felt pretty good. But man, like my body type just does not support gaining weight at all. Like I can lift and lift and lift and lift, and man, my input just it does not equal, or my output doesn't equal my input. Like it takes so much for me just to get a little bit of extra strength and gain a few extra pounds that it's so time consuming and horrible, and I hate it. And so I don't know.
I hear you.
I've done it. I've had several cycles where I've like really put in the effort. And I was 186 pounds one time, which is about 15 pounds heavier than I am right now. And man, the amount of food and effort it took to even maintain anywhere near that weight was just insane. And don't have time to do it. I mean, it was hours a day for months and months. And
Oh wow, yeah.
like,
Well, and for we'll talk about some of the specifics of BJJ and how being muscle bound may be an asset or not. Tony asked, "What caliber and type of round was it? Do you know?"
yeah, it was a 9mm. Yeah, and they actually said the next bullet in the magazine was a hollow point. So I guess I got lucky. I got hit with the first one.
Did he fire any additional rounds or just the one round?
No, just the one. Just the one. I think he did it and kind of freaked out because he'd probably never actually shot a gun before. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but I would almost guess that he hadn't, at least not at anybody.
I'm just thinking, I didn't consider asking this before, but now that I'm kind of thinking, because I was an investigator and a cop, and I'm thinking about the trial. Like, did he ever say like what he presumed you had done? Was it a case of mistaken identity? Like he thought you was somebody, or what was the problem?
No, man. Like the guy was just a scumbag. Like he, oddly enough, like several people actually knew this guy. Like I worked with a girl that knew him. I went to high school with some kids that I thought were scumbags in high school, and just randomly ran into him at like gas stations and stuff. And like, they would come up and be like, dude, that guy's a scumbag. Like we've known him forever. He doesn't even hang out with us. And so, yeah, he literally was just like, he had gotten kicked out of a bar that night, which is actually, so he got kicked out of a bowling alley for being drunk and belligerent, and then pulled the gun on the manager there and told him he was going to come back and kill him. Went to a bar, was drinking at the bar. Or I think the bar actually refused to serve him. Got kicked out of that place, and then just pulled up to a light and decided he wanted to shoot somebody, I guess.
God.
He said the whole defense in court was that it went off by mistake. And like, I'll tell you what, I hate trials. Defense attorneys are such just dirtbags.
Exactly. Speaking of scumbags.
Oh man. Like I remember going in and talking to his defense attorney, and the guy was just like, yeah, this guy's a scumbag. Basically gave me the, like, I'm not even gonna try to defend him type deal, and then like during trial, I'm like, oh my, this poor guy, maybe he didn't mean to shoot me. Oh, he's had such a rough life. Ooh. And like, and I'm sitting there going, holy crap, this guy's going to get away with it. Like not get away with it, but like, he was looking at like attempted murder, aggravated assault, carrying a gun without a license, carrying a gun with obliterated serial number. Like he was facing 58 years, all this crazy stuff, and like, man, this defense attorney did such a good job. Like it was crazy. And then, finally, like I remember, that they had his girlfriend up there, and she was like, oh my God, the gun accidentally went off, and he was like, oh no, what have I done? And, they really painted him to be this, like, this victim, right? Like, and she said, oh yeah, well, I did say that, but they rushed me, and it it was a 15-minute interview with the police, and I was hysterical the whole time. And you know, she was I think she was protecting herself, you know, because she had this scumbag in her life, right, that would probably kill her if she said anything otherwise. And but the final two people, the witnesses they pulled were the head investigator, and he was like, no, look, we did a 3.5 hour interview with her. She was completely, you know, she wasn't crying at all. She was correcting us on misstatements we had made, all that stuff. And then the final guy was like the head forensics guy in Indiana, and he actually had the gun. He broke it apart. He's like, look, like, these don't go off by accident. This is, you know, it takes X amount of pounds of pressure for double action, X amount for single action. And he really like broke it down. And like, I remember like during the last two testimonials, we were like, okay, like we're good here. So, you know, he got the guilty verdict. And then it was like 3 months later, we had to go back and do the sentencing and stuff, which that was even harder because then they wanted to pull everybody and have him give these little depositions and stuff and get his family up there to talk about how, you know, how big of a saint he was. And I was like, good Lord. And they read some poetry he wrote. And I'm like, these are like literally just him rewriting modern songs on the radio, like almost word for word. But you know, and then they pulled my family up there to talk about stupid. It was way more emotional than the actual trial. And yeah, dumb stuff.
Man, I tell you, and again, I'm looking down the list of folks that are on this morning. Thank you to the 20 folks that are watching us live and everyone that will watch or listen to the replay. You know, a lot of law enforcement officers, current and former, FBI agents, etc. And thank God for prisons, man. And having worked in one, I can attest that those people just don't think like me and you, James. They just, they may look like me and you, but that they're not me and you, man. Let's shift gears a little bit now that we've gotten that really terrible incident in your life out of the way. What do most people that are watching this morning that are going to listen, what do they not understand about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? What do they get wrong about it?
Oh, I don't know. So when I'm explaining Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to somebody, okay, so anytime somebody comes into our academy, we always do like a free intro class. And the first thing I always tell them is, you know, Jiu-Jitsu's theory is very simple. Take the fight to the ground, dominate the position where I can effectively attack without being attacked. And that's most important because that actually occurs when I'm standing also, right? So get it to the ground, position yourself where you can attack without being attacked, in the fight. So choke, hold, armbar, leg lock, right? Choke results in unconsciousness about 8 seconds. Armbar or leg lock results in something being broken or dislocated. All of those are definitive fight-ending techniques. If I choke you unconscious, I win. I can walk away. I can escalate it. I can light you on fire. I can stab you more. I can break your arms after you're unconscious, right? If I break your arm, you know, even if you're the baddest guy in the world and you want to continue fighting, I did it. I broke your arm when you had 2 good ones. You know, second time around is going to be easier. If I break your leg again, I can walk away. Probably I took you and your buddy out because now he's got to help you. So, you know, with that said, we didn't really talk about the striking. Now, you know, jiu-jitsu does involve a little bit of striking, but from a self-defense perspective, I'm not a fan of striking, especially from my body type, right? I'm 170 pounds. I'm not very big. I don't have knockout power. I can hit a guy 20, 30 times and probably not put him out. I can get hit once and be put out by a guy that's never trained, right? There's always a lucky punch. There's no such thing as lucky jiu-jitsu. There's no lucky choke or lucky armbar, right? I have to know how to get to that position. I have to know how to maintain that position, and I have to know how to do the finishing move that I want to do. So when I'm in a self-defense scenario, I want to take luck completely out of the equation. Now I might strike to enter into a clinch, enter into a takedown. I might strike once I'm in a dominant position to set something up, but ultimately I want to not get hit. I'm going to manage my distance no matter where I'm at and finish. And I think a lot of people, they look at it one of 2 ways. They look at it from that lens of like the UFC, right? And they either go, oh, jiu-jitsu is UFC. It's that fighting. Or they go, well, jiu-jitsu is that really small part, and those guys get punched in the face, and like every time they get on the ground, they get beat up. Well, those are world-class athletes, right? And I hear a lot of people go, well, jiu-jitsu is not good for self-defense because I don't want to be on the ground. Look, man, 6 months in, like you're going to smoke somebody in about 10, 15 seconds that doesn't know what they're doing. Like I'm not rolling around on the ground for an hour with some untrained fool, you know, like if it even has to hit the ground before I break something, it's going to be over in about 5 seconds. Right. And I'm not just like like, you know, I don't have the blinders on if I'm fighting one person on the ground. Like I'm always in a position where I can look around, I can defend myself, I can move the person I'm controlling between me and another person. I don't want to be standing trying to punch and kick with 4 other dudes, you know, like that's 8 arms and 8 legs versus my 2. Like I would honestly rather grapple them. I can keep my base. I can move around. I can slam their head into a wall. I can choke one guy while I'm kicking the other guy in the face. You know, ultimately I don't want to be fighting more than one person. I don't want to fight anybody ever if I don't have to, but you know, there's a lot of self-defense wise, there's a lot of misconceptions, and a little bit of it is how you train. You know, if you're one of those guys that just walks out, pulls guard, barambolos, and doesn't do any self-defense ever, you know, then yeah, you might get your head kicked in. But there's also the other extreme where you're only doing the self-defense stuff, like the you know, and I hate to say it, but like the old Gracie Jiu-Jitsu self-defense things that are in every other martial art that they spent all this time telling us didn't work. But then when you do it, they're like, oh yeah, you high block the knife and then you wrap your, I'm like, man, I learned that in karate and it didn't work then. So yeah. There's extremes on both ends, you know? So, you know, I think some of that self-defense stuff is great, but the way I see jiu-jitsu self-defense, it's more, you know, enter the clinch, like keep a simple clinch entry, get the takedown, you know, weapon or not, like, I'm gonna maintain my distance, right? If it's a knife, my distance is real far. If it's a gun, my distance is real close. Unless I'm sitting in a car, I can't move. You just get shot. Apparently, I don't know, but yeah, you know, I think just kind of understanding like that distance management and the overall just kind of theory of positioning where you can effectively attack without getting attacked helps people understand it a little bit. I don't know. I rambled a little bit there. Did that answer your question?
No, it's great. But I want to talk to you about, because you mentioned, you know, take the fight to the ground, finish the fight. But why go to the ground? To me, I always visualize it like you don't see a lion or a cheetah fighting a gazelle standing. They get them to the ground and then they dominate that ground attack. Can you talk about why remove it from the 3rd dimension to the 2 dimensions?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of control, right? Like if I can put your back against the earth, that's one direction you can't go, right? If we're standing, you can move every direction. You can even jump up at some point, but you can never go any further down. So if I can put your whole body there, I know exactly which directions you're going to go. When, you know, like I said, like 6 months, year into jiu-jitsu, man, untrained guys become very predictable in the way they move when they're placed against the floor. If I've got their back on the floor, they're going to do one of a couple things. So my intro class, for example, we talk about the clinch, we talk about the takedown, we talk about the mount position. So from mount, I'm going to punch a guy, right? Hit him a couple times. Now I'm not going to haul off and do any damage. I'm going to throw a couple pop, 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 just real quick, right down the pipe, get a reaction. Untrained guys have one of 3 reactions 99% of the time. Number 1, they don't like getting hit. They cover up. Well, I know they're going to cover, right? So we got Americano. We got all kinds of stuff from there. Number 2, they're going to push you off of them. They're going to get off me. They want you off. They push, they expose their arms, right? So their arms are away from their face. We can punch more. We can armbar. We can do all kinds of stuff. Or they want to get up. They're going to roll. They're going to expose their back. So now we can take their back. We can flatten them out. But they can't go anywhere else. You know, once I get their back, we can choke them. But it's just a matter of control. So it's they are between the earth and my person, and my person's controlling them, right? But when they're standing, you know, even if I've got a good tight clinch, they're standing, like they can still circle, they can move, they can go front, back, side to side. Now I can clinch against a wall or something like that, a fence, you know, a tree, like depends on a car, like depends on where we're fighting. So I can put them, like sandwich them between me and something else, like a rock and a hard place, right? But just ultimately on the ground, they don't have footwork, they don't have movement, they can't throw punches and develop a lot of power, like especially if they're on bottom, right? They're fighting against gravity, gravity's on my side, they can't turn their shoulders and get that. And if I'm mounted on somebody, even if they do hit me, I'm able to rock with it. If I hit them, either they're on the ground and they have nowhere to go, or their head comes up and I dribble it. So that ground just gives me that ability to control where they move and make them completely predictable. I mean, even ultimately, even high level guys, like if I put a high level guy on his back, he's predictable. Now he might be super good at what he's doing and he can sweep and get out of it. But like the amount of times you get hit with something you never saw coming, you know, it doesn't happen too often. Like it might be a surprise when it happens because it happens fast. But typically you're like, yeah, shit, I got hit with that. Shouldn't have got hit with that. I actually, so well, it's Saturday, just this past Saturday. I my second match in my open had the guy, and I got him in my like shin across belly position I'm really good at. You can buy my instructional on BJJ Fanatics, and boom, I hit him, swept him, and he goes, man, I should have seen that coming. I guess I did, or something. He said something along those lines. You know, he's like, I didn't see that coming, or maybe, yeah, I guess I did, or I don't know what he said, but exactly, I just kind of laughed and just kept passing. But you know, like. You still get hit with stuff even if you see it coming, I guess. But yeah, and I like the analogy you said, you know, the lion doesn't stand and bang with the gazelle. And like if you look at most animals in nature, the ones that strike have horns or hooves.
Yeah.
Right. The ones that don't, they grab, like a lion grabs. Like, and yeah, they have claws to sink into stuff, but ultimately most animals grapple in some nature. We don't have horns or hooves. Like even our fists, like I have soft tissue over these knuckles that aren't very hard. You know, the bones in my hands and feet are some of the smallest in my body, and it's covered with soft tissue. Like that's meant to break.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of things we can do to protect our hands and stuff. But if I get in a fight and my first punch, I break my hand, I'm like, oh, that sucked. You know, luckily I've never super hurt my hands. But man, I remember I punched the ground one time, like training for my last MMA fight. Punched the ground. I had gloves on, everything, and I got a boxer's fracture. Like that freaking pinky hand or pinky bone there. It hurt for like 2 years. It was crazy, and I never hit it. Stopped hitting stuff. Yeah. You know,
hill palm strikes, guys. Hill palm.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an untrained striker, man, and you know hill palm strikes. I can't recommend it enough. You said something in there, you know, like human beings, you know, we're apex predators. We have eyes up front to hunt. These other animals, eyes on the side to hide. And, you know, using that. One of the other things that you said that I liked, James, was how, you know, there's very few things. I think people think, okay, I've got this person, I've mounted them. They could do 1,000 things. No, they can't. You know, they're going to put their hands up. They're going to reach up for me. They're going to roll over and try to stand up. And it becomes simple mathematics at that point. I only need to know 4 or 5 things. I don't need to know 100 things, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's what I tell people. Like I do this it's like an hour intro and I'm like, you know more jiu-jitsu than 90% of the people in the world right now. You know? I had another point there, but it's early. You made me get up so early, Rich.
I'm so sorry.
I'm still in bed.
Hey, James, do you have a go-to move? Is there something that like, this is my go-to submission, or this is my game, this is how my game opens up, anything like that?
Man, not really. So what I'll tell you is 2 things. Number one, I'm really big on game plans, right? So like when I'm training, I typically have a game plan of things that I'm probably not great at, kind of new things. And when I'm competing, I do have like an A game, like this is what I want to get to during competition. You know, these are the things I'm really good at, the things I'm going to focus on during this tournament. And fortunately I've been doing it long enough. I've got a lot of different A games, right? So like, okay, I didn't get to where I want to be, but I've been here before and I know what I want to do from here. So I'm really big on training kind of with purpose. So, you know, I developed this training game plan. I stick to that during training. I get better at that thing, or, you know, or I'm training for a tournament. So I'm only doing the stuff I'm really good at, or the stuff I'm not great at. My dog's running around. Thought my house was coming down. Or the stuff I'm not great at, right? Like if I'm horrible at escaping side control and I'm getting ready to compete, I'm probably going to focus a lot on escaping side control. Yeah. And then overall, man, I just believe in like evolution. Like I think like jiu-jitsu is expanding so fast that, you know, as an instructor, especially, like I always use the term, jack of all trades, master of some, right? I do have my game. I've got the things I'm great at, but I want to be proficient and knowledgeable about everything that I can. Like I've never berimboloed somebody in my entire life, but I want to be able to teach it. If somebody asks, I want to be able to go, okay, well, here's a couple options from here, and then more importantly, I go, here's a better resource. Here's what I know. Here's a better resource, right? I teach leg locks all the time. I'm like, here's a few things. Go check out, go check out the Danaher and the Gordon Ryan stuff and all that, right? I'm not going to try to out teach leg locks on those guys. It doesn't make any sense. So just continue improvement and then like training with focus, training with a purpose there.
Do you, I want to skip back to mindset, maybe as far as, there's a lot of folks that are on here this morning that are competitive shooters, not
Okay.
maybe necessarily competitive fighters, but, on the competitive shooting side of the house, and I compete some there, is there any kind of visualization that you run through, kind of like a Lenny Basham type techniques or anything before you compete?
Yeah, a little bit. So number one, going into any kind of scenario like that, whether it's, just even go to the movie, like especially dealing with anxiety, right? Man, do your best. Whatever it is, go out and do your best. I never focus on winning. I definitely don't even remotely thinking about losing. I don't remotely think about losing, but I don't focus 100% on winning. What I do is focus on doing my best jiu-jitsu or whatever it may be, right? And then have fun. Like if I'm not having fun, I shouldn't be there. And I tell my students, a lot of people, they're at the tournament, they're like, oh, I don't want to be here. I'm like, well, then don't. Like you obviously do want to be here because you trained for it. You paid for it. You got up in the morning and you drove here, like this is, if you're doing it and you're able to do it, man, that's a privilege. That's something like there was a long point in my life when I couldn't afford to do a jiu-jitsu tournament. I couldn't afford to buy a new gi. Like if I'm able to go out and do that, like that's awesome. Like you want to do it, you want to be there. So go out and have fun while you're doing it and just do your best, whatever it is. And then going into things. So my big jiu-jitsu movie homework that I assign to every single person is the 1980s Sylvester Stallone classic Over the Top. Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
A long time ago.
All right. Do you know why I recommend that movie to everyone?
No, I haven't seen it probably since the 80s.
Go back and watch it. It's super great. 80s cheesy, but it's phenomenal. So there's a part where they're doing like interviews and Lincoln Hawk, Sylvester Stallone's character, he's talking about the truck and he's got his hat on and he says something along the lines of like, oh yeah, I turn my hat around. It's like a switch. I become a machine, like a truck. So like that kind of goes back to like that mindset, right? Like that's a switch. We call it, my guys like develop something. So my personal like neuroassociative conditioning, whatever you want to call it, whatever term we want to use, right? Number one, I always train with a rash guard on. You don't compete with a rash guard under the gi, right? So part of that is just having that gi against my skin and feeling it. So it's a different feeling. And then number two, I run out and there's like it's like 5 steps to the ref. That's my trigger, right? That's my switch. So it goes from like non-compete to, all right, it's go time. And then, man, honestly, like this weekend, every time I even felt that little bit of like, that little bit of dread, like, so I'll tell you, man, I fought this guy 3 times this weekend. He's a 6-time world champion, 11-time pan champion, 3-time European champion, like pretty good at jiu-jitsu. Going into it, the first round, I was like, no big deal. Got this guy. And I felt pretty good about it. The guy was way stronger than me. Felt okay. And then just kind of got dumb, got caught in an arm bar, tapped quick. I was like, all right, I'll fight you again tomorrow. And then the second time going into it, I was like, okay, I think I got it figured out. But, there's always a little bit of dread, especially after somebody's beating you. So I just made sure I smiled. Like sitting on the sideline, I'd smile and shake out, do a little dance, smile, look around and just go, man, this is awesome. Like I get to be here. I get to compete. I get to do what I love. I get to go against these world-class competitors. That's how many other sports can you walk out and go, yeah, I'm gonna go ball around with Michael Jordan, or throw some. I don't know sports. how often can I grab some famous quarterback and just and pass the football with him? You can't do that. But jiu-jitsu, like at a certain point, you can do that. And not only am I rolling with this guy, I'm like competing. I might beat him, right? Like, can you imagine beating Michael Jordan in a game of one-on-one basketball? No. Like, there's that chance, right? So the next time around, I was like, man, it's cool. It's like a video game, right? I lost on the stage one, but now I get to redo it. So now I got to change my strategy a little bit, and change my strategy, man. Our second match was phenomenal, and then he changed his strategy. He took me down, and I was like, oh crap, this guy's a guard puller, and he just took me down. And my wrestling's fair. It's not phenomenal by any means, but it's fair. So second round, he outpointed me, but we had a good match. We ended up fighting again. So third time, I'm like, okay, different strategy. Came out, wrestled, didn't get taken down. Boom, pulled guard, got right into my A game. And he got out of my A game. So I ended up in my like D game. And I was like, all right, let's see what I can do for it. And I did fine. I did fine. We scrambled. And again, he ended up outpointing me. But I felt better about it. You know what I mean? Like each match was like, first match, he tapped me. Second match, he beat me, I think, by 7. Third match, he beat me by 4, So it was cool to like kind of get to see that progression. And he actually came up to me and he was like, hey man, like, I know your story, man. It's an honor to fight you. Like he started kind of asking me about like, hey, did that guy that shot you, did he get arrested? And, it was kind of cool. So, it was cool to meet the guy and just kind of, he was like, man, I kind of studied up on you. And it was nice to see that he was doing his homework. I'm sure he was just looking me up, seeing, who I was jiu-jitsu wise, but like he was like, oh man, this guy's got a crazy story, and kind of read about it. And, and I got to fight another buddy of mine. We've gone several times. Israel Reyes, we had 2 matches this weekend, and he actually toe-holded me. The guy's a jerk. Oh. No, he's a good dude. But again, man, like we our first match, it was in our gi division. He beat me on an advantage, and he's a world champion too. And he beat me on one advantage. Felt great about it. Second time we ended up going no gi, I was like, I'm going to change my strategy. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be a little more active. Just play games that I don't play. Like I tried a flying triangle over his guard at one point, and it almost worked. Like I almost passed his guard. But then what happened was I gained some momentum and I started feeling good about it. And then instead of just kind of going, okay, I need to kind of chill out a little bit. I've got a little bit of a lead. I kind of kept playing, and I ended up in a spot I didn't want to be in. And I went for a leg lock that I really didn't want to go for. And then I got caught. Right. So it was a strategic error. And, it's one of those ones that, unfortunately I've made a few times. Like you get a little bit of a lead and then you're just like, just go. So it's cool to have it as like a, competition is a learning thing. Like I could probably do that exact same thing 1,000 times in class and I would never think anything of it. But when you lose at a tournament because of it, like it puts a bigger impression. You know what I mean? And same thing with winning. Sometimes like you might have an A game move you never even think about. And you hit people with it all the time, but then you hit it in a tournament and you're like, oh, that one's mine. Yeah, that's a good one. So it's kind of another reason I like competing. You go out and it's not just a test, but it's almost like a game, and it leaves. I think it leaves deeper impressions. So I kind of look at just speaking of mindset, right? Like I go into the tournament with that mindset. Like, all right, like what kind of impressions am I going to get from this? What kind of game am I going to get to play? What am I going to learn from this? And man, I had 7 matches this weekend. I learned some good lessons, and I feel like I learn those lessons every time I compete. So
yeah, I like that. There's a lot of things in that. In your answer that to unpack. One of them is the main one is flipping that switch.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back and watch that movie again, but I get it. And there's a couple of things I do, when I come to the line to shoot, the stage, I'll say, grip the gun, see the sights, be aggressive.
Yeah.
And I probably need to get a little mantra like that for rolling. I currently don't have one, but I'm gonna stew on that one and try to come up with something.
Well, those mental triggers apply all throughout, right? They apply in everything you do. Like
totally.
Like I have to do stuff like that just walking into a room full of people. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, oh, I don't want to be here. or like,
That's right.
get amped up. Like, I'm going to talk to somebody today,
Yeah. And I've got 2-week-long instructor certification courses going on next month with firearms. And, we teach the student instructors that, hey, you need to find these enabling states. How do you reach and maintain enabling states so that you can be your best for your students? And there's a lot of really good things that you said there, James, that I hope people are listening to, because you do need to be able to flip that switch. You got to find it, whatever your motivation is. Maybe it's having fun, maybe it's not, but I think all top level guys have the ability to turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that Tony asks is, what lessons, if any, and what might you have been able to do differently on the night of the shooting? Is there anything taken away from it? Like, I could have, should have done this, or no?
Man, Tony, that's a really good question. And it's something I've actually thought about a lot. It's like, this guy pulled up next to me. Well, there was no immediate threat. So I didn't really have a reason just to like floor it and run a red light and, possibly cause an accident. I didn't carry a firearm at the time. I do now, but even had I, like, there would not have been a chance of me, like, shooting back or being first or whatever. Like, the second I saw the gun, I was shot. I doubt even a full second passed between the point that I saw it and he pulled the trigger. Honestly, man, like, I really don't think there was a whole lot more I could have done. Had I hit the gas a second sooner, maybe the bullet would have hit me in the back of the head, side of the head or something. It would, like, the angle that it hit me was probably the most perfect angle. Like, we're talking less than a centimeter off. It would have hit my carotid artery or something like that. So, I've thought about it a little bit. I try not to dwell on it. Obviously I can't change it. So yeah, I really honestly don't think there could have been a lot I could have done differently or better. Oddly enough, the one answer I come up with was like, had I left the house 30 seconds earlier or 30 seconds later, or had I been in the left lane instead of the right, you know what I mean? But that doesn't really do me any good. So yeah, it's nothing I dwell on. And from the scenario, the way it played out, I really, truly believe I couldn't have done anything differently.
Yeah. And combat's like that, or speaking of flipping the switch, I remember before I would walk into the corrections pod with inmates, and be behind 2 locked doors, whether it's saying a prayer or whatever, or getting in my patrol car and starting a shift or whatever, being a bouncer and fixing to go into a club and work an 8-hour shift and deal with a bunch of violent, drunk morons. Putting that, if you're a spiritual kind of guy, putting a hedge of protection around yourself, saying a prayer, whatever. But at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to luck. Like you said, if I'd have left 30 seconds earlier or later, I never would have come across the path of this maniac.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, James. What do you think a lot of BJJ or martial arts teachers, for that matter, what do they get right and get wrong about teaching self-defense? What do you think?
Oh, man. I think the 2 biggest things probably that I see, like, all throughout, so I'm not going to like single any martial art out, but just in general, is not enough live training. Like fortunately, like boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, the reality martial arts, we go hands-on. We do it 100% the way we'd really use it in a real situation. Right. But most of the time we don't throw weapons in that. I don't know hardly anybody that really does like true gun, bat, club, disarmament, stuff like that. Right. And the guys you see doing it. So the other part of that is the guys you see doing that stuff, most of it's terrible. Like, man, like you're doing, I'm going to move the knife around this way 7 times. I'm going to switch it and I'm going to flip hands. I'm going to re-stab the guy you're going to get sliced to bits. Right. And then all these crazy, like, gun tactics, like where they're like, no, like, you're going to get shot. You're going to get dead, real dead. One of my black belts, Mick Williams, he's a SWAT guy. Man, he's got the best, like, knife stuff that I've ever seen. And it's just super simple. and he's trained in all of like the JKD and the Kali and the Eskrima, and he's done all the different, all these martial arts where they did all the crazy stuff with the knives. And he's just like, hey, here's a simple system. Like, number one, don't, we don't engage unless we have to, but once you've engaged, you go until it's over. Right. And he'll show videos of like, hey, look, this guy got stabbed 27 times while he was fighting and he was fine. He turned his back. He got stabbed once, he died. So it's like once you make the engagement, you stay in it. But yeah, it's just a simple system of like, boom, we control here. But it's more than that, right? It's like, hey, here's what they call indexing when they like touch it, like kind of, it's like telegraphing, like, oh, okay. Like, you recognize that the person has a weapon. Here's what we do before they draw the weapon. Here's what we do when they draw the weapon. Here's what they do when there's space after they've drawn the weapon. And it's a real simple system of disarmament. And I think like people want flash and flare, and flash and flare is like how you get flayed open. So like just keep it simple and keep it realistic. You know what I mean? I think that's the two biggest things, like either just not doing enough like real world self-defense type stuff, and then also just not doing realistic stuff when you deal with weaponry.
Yeah, I love it. And one of the things that I see, or I have seen in my, I got into martial arts in like 1980, 81, is a fundamental misunderstanding of self-defense law in the United States. So placing the technique into the appropriate context in which it's going to be used. I did a video recently where my 10th Planet coach had somebody's laying on their back, and they're like this, and you go in and attack them, you sweep the leg, you get them in a clover leaf, and you tear their knees apart. I'm like, man, legally, if the person's, what does it look like to a jury? Oh, my client was helpless on his back, and this mean jiu-jitsu guy came in and tore his legs up. And why would I, for one, I incur a physical risk of attacking the person on the ground. I don't know if they're armed or not armed. Then I incur the legal risk of going in on this person. So I think that for me, what I've seen is that martial arts instructors don't understand the 5 elements of the law of self-defense, and they don't place the technique into the appropriate context. Sometimes the techniques are taught in isolation. Does that make sense at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what'd you call it? The 5 steps of
the 5 elements of self-defense.
Yeah, the 5 elements, right? Like legally, like, but I always tell guys like, in the intro class, right? Like if I take you down and I smash your face in, you sue me, that's going to look real bad on me. I know that. I understand that, right? If I break your arms, it's going to look real bad. So I'm going to control you and maybe not even put you out. But if I just choke you unconscious, it shows control on my part. Nobody got hurt. I'm able to walk away. If I do break your arm, I don't know what happened. You slipped and fell and started screaming.
Yeah. That wasn't your intent. It just happened.
wasn't my intent. It just happened. So I actually have a friend, he was originally, he was my realtor. He started doing private lessons in jiu-jitsu with me. So we trained him for probably about 6 months, just private lessons twice a week. And we're real good friends now, but he got in an altercation. Man, it was his, I want to say like in California or something. So him and his family popped in a trailer and they drove across the country for a while. Well, they were looking for like this a trailer park area to park in for a week or two. And one of the employees, maybe the site manager or something, came out and like just assaulted him and his wife. And he's like, we're here to try to rent a spot. And the guy was just belligerent and like getting in his car and like trying to take his phone and stuff. Well, he ends up out of the car, shirt ripped off, but he takes this guy's back and he's rear mount on him and he starts choking him, and he notices people are coming out. So he rolls the guy over on top of him. And he's choking this guy unconscious, but he starts going, help me, get this guy off me. Somebody help me. This guy won't get off me. And he's like, yeah, man, I knew like it was going to look real bad if I'm just on top of this guy choking him out. He's like, so I rolled him over on top. He goes, I kept my hooks in. I was choking him, but he said, I was screaming the whole time. He goes, and I put the guy, he goes, I didn't choke him all the way out, but I choked him until he couldn't fight. And then I just kind of dropped him and I ran and I was like, oh my God, somebody call the cops. And he's like, I was basically kicking this guy's ass, but I was like playing the victim the whole time because, if this guy's the property manager here, we get into it. And he goes, now I've got all these witnesses were me screaming, get this guy off me. And I was like, man, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but it's pretty quick thinking,
Yeah, that's exactly what, we've had attorney Andrew Bronco on here before who wrote The Law of Self-Defense. Please check out that book, by the way, if you're on this morning. And if you want to check out James's content, some of the DVDs and stuff he's got out, I've got links to everything in the show notes. So you can find James's jiu-jitsu schools. You can find his DVDs on BJJ Fanatics. I got you covered this morning. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, James, is BJJ becoming too sport-centric or maybe not enough sport-centric? What do you think?
Oh, man. Yes and no. I think it goes back to kind of what we talked about with the self-defense. Like a lot of the self-defense stuff that's being taught is almost worthless. It's not good, right? I like the sporting aspect of it. And I truly believe that if you are proficient at sport jiu-jitsu, you are going to win 99.9% of the self-defense altercations, right? And I also think there's like this giant misconception of like, oh, that guy's a guard player. He barambolos in tournaments. He'd get beat up in a fight. Well, man, let's say that I pull guard and I do flashy like lapel stuff, like Keenan Cornelius, for example, right? That dude, he pulls guard, you think if he gets in a fight with a guy not wearing a gi, he's not going to blast double him and just pound him into the dirt.
Right.
I think that jiu-jitsu guys are smart enough to know that certain techniques don't apply in certain scenarios. I always get I don't wear a gi in the street. It's like, no, but man, I live in Indiana. We wear clothes like 12 months out of the year. Like I can choke you with your shirt. Also, I don't need your shirt to choke you. I can grab your neck. I can grab your, your elbow. So I don't need the gi. I'm smart enough to know that like when you're not wearing a gi, I don't grab the gi. It's, I'm not like reaching blindly going, I don't understand what's happening. There's no lapel. So I think there's like this giant misconception of because you train in a gi or because you have a certain sporting style that's how you would try to defend yourself. And, I said it earlier, like a street fight does not look like a rolling session in class. Like a street fight's going to be super quick. Like, man, 7 to 10 seconds, really. Like it's going to be ultra violent and it's going to end very quickly. In my favor, and probably like, any jiu-jitsu black belt that's worth anything, it's going to end in their favor, like pretty easily, and assuming there's not a lot of other like outside influence, like multiple attackers and weapons and things like that. But I think it's just a big misconception that the guys that play the sport jiu-jitsu can't defend themselves. And it goes the other way too. Like it's a misconception that the guys that train for self-defense can more effectively defend themselves, because sometimes that's not the case either.
Yeah, I agree. And we see the same thing, James, on the competitive shooting side of the house. There are the tactical Timmies that'll say, oh, training, competing in the shooting sports will get you killed in the streets and all this crap. I think it's BS. Most high level competitive shooters could do incredibly well in a gunfight. My thought, and most high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, berimbolo or not, is going to crush the average guy or gal in the streets.
And I think the guys that are probably out there shooting at people, like the criminals and stuff, probably typically aren't really good shots. They probably aren't training, right? Like you can shoot at me 30 or 40 times and miss, and I get one shot and I'm going to hit it, right? So, yeah,
there was I don't think I've ever told this story before, but I had one of my inmates when I was a pod officer. He had been shot in a similar position to you. The bullet went right underneath the eye, so his eye was really, like this.
Yeah.
And the bullet was still lodged in his brain. And he was telling me about being in that. He was telling me about being in that gunfight because he's shooting back. And he's like, "Yeah, Officer Brown, I got my Glock out." I'm like, "Mop, mop, mop, mop," and I get shot. And he goes like, "I just my head blew back like that, and I just wiped the blood off and kept shooting with my Glock." And I'm like, "So you were shooting like this, like slinging the bullets out?" He's
like, "Yeah, they go faster when you, you gotta punch them out."
And he literally, you're like, well, yeah, what else do you do? Like, I mean, that was kind of he looked at me funny, like, so you didn't try to line the sights or anything? It's like,
you know what those things are for, right? That's
he had no clue.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like, so yeah, your point is well made. So James, gi or no gi, man, do you have a preference? What are your thoughts on that?
I love them both. I think they complement each other. Like I think gi versus no gi is a stupid argument. You know, there's all these guys like I don't like. I've got one of my guys where he always jokes about it. He's like, oh, no gi's gypsy stuff, but he does way better in no gi. Like he's been on EBI. Like he lost to Gordon Ryan on EBI, and like he's won some pretty big no gi tournaments, right? But he only trains in the gi. Like he hates no gi, but he always competes very well no gi. For me, man, like I said, I think they complement each other immensely. I think obviously because there's more to do with the gi on. If I look at it like a computer, right, it kind of ups my RAM, right? It gives me more to think about. So offensively and defensively, I'm thinking at a higher move per minute rate. When the gis come off, I have a much lower move per minute rate, but the action is faster. Okay. There's more scrambles. There's more speed needed. So physically it's fast. No gi's physically faster, mentally slower. And I think gi is a little bit the opposite, right? I can grab things. I can slow the action down. But man, my jujitsu actually made a big turn when I started really teaching and focusing on no gi, like around like late blue, early purple belt, because I really had to like start going, okay, like how do I control a person with no gi? And, you know, it made my game much tighter. It made it, you know, my grips heavier, my grips very, like I had more intent with where I was grabbing, right? Like with the gi, I can grab an arm and it doesn't matter if it's right here at the sleeve or up here or right here, right? But like no gi, like it's got to be boom, and it's got to be like exactly on the joints. And when I'm heavy, like you know, in a gi, I can kind of use that lapel and I can help pin, but no gi, I don't have that. So man, when I really started training more no gi specific stuff and even teaching it, it really helped my gi game because I got so much tighter. My pressure got so much better. So yeah, I think they complement each other. I love both of them. I competed in both of them this weekend. You know, they both just bring different elements, and I like them both. Like obviously, like I think the gi is a little more fun sometimes just because there's so much more to do, right? No gi, there's only so much we can do. Like I don't have anything to like go, what happens if I pull this around here 14 times and can I start his head like a lawnmower? And you know, you just don't have that, but yeah, no, I like them both. I don't have a preference. I will say I train 99% in the gi, just because like, and if somebody's ever like, hey, can we do no gi around? Yeah, cool. Take it off. And I do no gi classes sometimes, but, we do comp trainings on Sunday. We alternate back and forth. You know, we'll do gi one weekend and no gi the next, or depending on if we got a big gi tournament coming up, we'll change it all to gi, or a big no gi tournament coming up, we change it all to no gi. So.
Yeah, I have found for, you know, I'm almost 52. And for me, I think, you know, that no gi favors the younger, fitter, faster, more athletic guys. Like you said, James, the game is so much faster for me, and having 3 knee surgeries and a screw holding his shoulder together, I'm really leery of training with a young, fit guy in no gi. Whereas with the gi on, I feel like, you know, I can use some top pressure, slow it down, work my grips, and yeah. So for me, I have to make myself do no gi.
Yeah.
You know, I really do.
Yeah. So my instructor, Nibel Braga, he's an 8th degree. He's kind of one of the early innovators of like the lapel guard and stuff. Like they call him master of the lapels. And that's basically what he said. He's probably close to 60 now. And he's like, you know, basically was like, man, I can't keep up with these young guys. He goes, that's why I developed all these gi things. He's like, I can literally just grab a gi and wrap it around somebody and they can't move. And I rolled with him, and that's exactly what it was like. Like we rolled for like an hour, and it was like, if I gave him any kind of lapel grip, I was just stuck. It's like, you know, now I'll be 42 this year. So I'm almost 20 years younger than him. He's had his black belt as long as I've been alive. Yeah. So like physically I can outpace him. I can sweep him and stuff like that. But man, like, it's like when he gets into his game, it's just miserable. And So yeah, definitely, I think like that's a perfect point. Like as you get older and you got to slow these guys down, the gi, the gi helps a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like guys that are not nearly as technical as you can beat you no gi, just simply on youth, straight speed, strength, and flexibility. Like,
yeah. And again, to your point about, well, nobody wears gis on the street. Well, I can't tell you how many times as a bouncer or as a cop, I'm grappling with somebody that's wearing a leather jacket or a vest or whatever. And guess what? All the stuff applies. So I think if you're just a no gi guy, you're a Gordon Ryan, and maybe you want to switch it up a little bit and learn those lapel chokes.
yeah, I always tell people, man, if you get in a fight with somebody who's naked, like you made a lot of bad decisions leading up to that, so it's probably your fault.
I love that. I'm gonna steal that. Hey, last question, James. Thank you for so much. I've had you on here for an hour and a half, man. I want you to go enjoy your Memorial Day, sir. But I'm going to ask you a catch-all question. What kind of reasonable, responsible, potentially armed guy or gal do to protect themselves with all the craziness going on in the world today?
That's a big question. Learn to defend yourself in every way possible, right? You need to learn physical self-defense. Jiu-Jitsu is my chosen, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, wrestling. But ultimately, like Jiu-Jitsu, learn some hands-on stuff. If you decide to carry, which I think everyone should, learn to shoot. Practice drawing. Like I had a lesson. It was an older lady and her daughter, and the older lady, like I showed her how to stand with base, right? Like just the basic like standing technique. And she was like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I carry a gun. And I was like, hey, listen, that's great. I do too. I want to know jujitsu and know how to shoot. I said, how often do you practice drawing your weapon? And she's like, what? And I go, how often do you practice drawing and shooting? She's like, I've never done that. I said, what do you think is going to happen when you have to draw and shoot under pressure? She's like, well, I would just do it. And I was like, I said, listen, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but I said, what I would recommend is go to a shooting range, practice shooting, and also like practice drawing and dry firing, like set yourself up for success, right? Like if I'm in a scenario where I have to shoot someone, I want it to be done as proficiently and legally as possible. And I think that goes with anything. Like if you carry a knife, learn to use your knife. Like if you carry a baton, learn to use your baton. If you carry pepper spray, practice using the pepper spray in the appropriate manners. But ultimately, man, as dumb and as cliche as it sounds, a lot of self-defense just comes down to awareness. Like
totally
looking around, paying attention, stay off your damn phone. Like when I leave class at night, if I'm texting my wife, I text her from inside the building. Hey, I'm on my way to the car. I'm leaving right now. See you in a few minutes. Put my phone away. I'm aware when I'm locking the door. I'm aware when I get in my car, when I start it, and when I back out, and then I'm on the road, right? When I'm at a stoplight, I'm looking around, right? And I did that before I got shot at a stoplight. Just, man, pay attention to what you're doing. When I'm in a restaurant, I sit so I can see the door. And if I can't sit to where I see the door, the person across from me, I trust to pay attention to the door, right? Like if I'm out with like police officer or military buddies that are 100%, they're like, no, my back does not go to the door. I'm like, okay, I trust you to watch my back, and I will sit facing away from the door. But as I go in, I'm looking at other people, like always, movie theaters, any of this stuff. Like I'm sitting and I'm paying attention, like so I can see what's going on. I know where the exits are. I think I told the story on Chewy's podcast. Like my wife and I were at a concert, and a guy punched me in the face and then told me he's going to stab me. And I was like, okay. So immediately I knew exactly where his head was going to end up on the ground and under which table. And I knew which exit I was taking to get out. Like, it's awareness. I knew my surroundings before I picked them or, stopped and took my spot at the concert. And, I was able to de-escalate the situation eventually, but yeah, just awareness. And like, that sounds like paranoia, but it's not. Like I'm not worried about stuff the whole time, and I'm not worried about it because like I've kind of stopped and checked my surroundings and just went, okay, here's the things. Like once you're more in control of the situation, there's less worry, there's less paranoia, right?
Yeah.
Man, if I were in the jungle, like, I wouldn't be like on my cell phone going, oh.
Yeah, it's not paranoia, it's being prepared, right?
Yeah. It's preparation. It's super simple.
And to your point, when I used to teach this women's self-defense clinic when I was a cop, I'd always be like, hey, does anybody have any pepper spray? And, the young lady raised her hand. Hey, Susie, that's awesome. Can you come up here and show us? I go, what's in my purse? No problem. Grab your purse. Come on up here. Can you show us what kind of pepper spray you're using? And she's like, yeah, can you hold my phone? Can you hold my, sure, no problem. I'm standing up here holding her stuff. And she finally gets to the bottom of the bag and pulls it out. And my point of which is like, that took 13 seconds to get that can of pepper spray out. So to your point about the woman who says, well, I just draw my gun and shoot him. Have you ever practiced the draw? Well, what do you mean? Have you ever practiced drawing your pepper spray? If that's your go-to tool, you should know where it's at all times and be able to draw it out at the speed of which these conflicts happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said. Like whatever your means of self-defense is, practice it. And I think you should have more than one means, right? Like I carry a knife. I carry a knife mainly to open boxes, but it's there if I need it. I carry a gun and I train jiu-jitsu all the time. And I practice drawing and I practice shooting, and I don't practice stabbing necessarily. It's not my go-to. Like I said, it's to open boxes, maybe cut a seatbelt off if I need it, but it's there, I think I would definitely rather go hands-on than have to use a knife. Like it just, even against another knife, right?
Yeah. Well, again, that's going back to the law of self-defense. If we're going hands-on, I can't just pull the knife out because now I've just broken the element of proportionality, and I'm going to go to prison for that. And my jiu-jitsu coach is on this morning. Cody Hudson is on from Gun Jitsu Podcast.
What's up, Cody?
Good to have you, brother. James, I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover, man, and I really appreciate you. An hour and 40 minutes, brother. I thank you so much for coming on this Memorial Day.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and guys, where can they find you, James? What's the easiest way?
Man, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's James Clingerman. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like super easy. Guys, feel free to reach out anytime. Like I answer questions all day long. So yeah.
And buy some of James's DVDs, man. Support him and what he's doing up there, because I really appreciate it. James, thank you so much, sir. And thank you to everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everybody that watched today. And remember, folks, the fight is coming. Be ready.